So some shitty things have just been passed. Yeah. SESTA, FOSTA. We mentioned earlier how on the online world is very useful and meaningful and essential to sex workers and their businesses. What is SESTA and FOSTA doing to sex workers?
So SESTA FOSTA is basically preventing sex workers from advertising online, and the law punishes platforms for their advertisements. So platforms are held responsible if they are found to be supporting the advertisement of erotic services. So that's very far-reaching. And so the solution for a lot of these platforms is basically to just shut down rather than try and have some sort of mechanism that controls whether it's...
That monitors the hashtags or...
Yeah, I think the main issue with it is that it conflates consensual sex work with human trafficking. And that was the reason why Backpage shut down, is because there was an accusation that they had been supporting the human trafficking of youth. And meanwhile, Backpage was 99% used by sex workers themselves to advertise their services. But certainly there was some human trafficking stuff going on. But because law enforcement knew that they could go onto Backpage and like find basically people who had been human trafficked, or that like that's how people who were being trafficked were able to sort of communicate to people like, save me, please, that kind of thing. Wow. They did that through Backpage. And so now that that's down, it's going to be a lot harder to catch the human traffickers, that's for sure. And all those people that relied on their livelihoods on Backpage, or many of these platforms that are being shut down. They're not gonna. They have a very limited amount of options now for advertising themselves, and this is how they've created their livelihood for who knows how many years for a lot of them, and unfortunately, it means that they're probably going to have to go onto the street to get their clients. And taking the internet out of the equation, which made it possible for them to screen their clients, means that they are going to, if they're not going to go onto the street, they may have to go onto the dark web, which is again, like, it's just pushing it further and further underground.
Which makes it less and less safe.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's just confusing because there's this attempt to eradicate prostitution, which you're never going to do. And what the internet did was it took more people off the street. And now what this is going to do is going to force more people onto the street. And it's going to put people's lives in danger. People have already been murdered as a result of this.
Yeah, people are already missing.
People are missing. People are murdered. And as a direct result of this law, what it also does is it prohibits sex workers from talking to each other online. So beyond just the advertising component of it, it also removes the illegal for sex. It removes community and the ability for sex workers to provide resources to other sex workers, including bad date lists. So that's illegal, like to actually share with fellow sex workers clients who are bad, who are going to hurt them, because we know that sex workers can't rely on law enforcement to protect them, so they rely on each other and to communicate with each other, and now that is being banned online, which means a further danger to their lives and well-being. And so yes, this is a very scary law. It's also, in a more general sense, an internet censorship law, which people don't really quite realize, where dating apps are at risk of being shut down as well, that civilian people use without realizing that this is a law that's going to impact them. For instance, Microsoft changed its terms of service for Skype, and said basically that if they detect, they're going to be monitoring every single Skype call for nudity and profanity and obscenity. That's
Big Brother.
Yeah. Well, that's the risk of all. It's not even the risk. It's the reality of this law that was able to be ushered in via a human trafficking panic. That is exaggerated. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it's not serious. It's a terrifying thing that we need to totally address. But by conflating human trafficking with sex work, not the way to do it, because you're harming a lot more people that way. And it's unnecessary.
Because as you said before, sex workers are everywhere. People may not realize, like, everybody knows a sex worker.
Yeah,
Everybody
absolutely.
does, for sure. Yeah. And it's affecting all of them. It's probably affecting a family member of yours, a close friend of yours.
Yeah.
And it's going to shut down their livelihood or make their livelihood just hella more dangerous, right? Which is, what can we do as allies? Like, what can Nicole and I do? What can any of us do?
Listen to sex workers.
Yeah.
I think if you see some articles about, the effects of SESTA and FOSTA, pass it along.
Yeah.
Amplify those voices. Yeah. Amplify the voices of sex workers. There's so many now that it's passed, people are paying attention.
Right.
There's a big campaign
Perfect.
on the part of many industrious sex workers who are activists, and there was a big push there, but no one really listens to us. So unfortunately, it got passed, and certainly no one wants to appear that they are not for the protection of young people in the sex trade as far as human trafficking victims is concerned. And so it's a very murky subject. So I would say for allies, do your research, like read up on this, develop an opinion on it, because so many people are afraid to touch sex work as a topic. It's a political hot potato. Because people don't talk about these issues openly, because there's so much stigma, because so few sex workers have the privilege and the luxury of being able to come out and talk about their actual lived experiences.
Yeah.
So few people actually know what sex work actually looks like.
Actually entails. Yeah.
So
what a sex worker actually is like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, just signal boost those voices.
Awesome.
That's the best.
I think is what we're hoping our book can contribute to.
Yeah.
To be, Andrea sharing her story, and, it can give someone a very humanizing picture of, like, who sex workers are, which is just people, just
another
like anyone else.
Person. Yeah.
And so we're hoping, like, we can have, a contribution in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you want one thing to come out of this book, is that it?
I mean, I think we want many things to come out of this book. Like,
not to limit you to one.
Like in a positive sense. Like, I think we also want to be an example as female creatives and female entrepreneurs in terms of, for one thing, having a dream that we want to make something and doing everything we can to make that a reality. Like, we started our own company just to make this book the exact way we wanted to. We did crowdfunding on Kickstarter to actually get the funding to make it. And
you did a bunch of live events.
We did.
Yeah.
On your show.
Yes.
On Bedpost.
On Bedpost. And which is, as Andrea mentioned, a huge part of it, and having that support. So I think that's part of it, is we want to be an example as female creatives, but also the process we made the book. We want that to be an example people can look at. I mean, we're making a book that has to do with sex, that has to do with erotic imagery, and the process in which we created that. It was really important to us that it be, a very consensual process all the way. Like, I think that, I often speak about wanting to be like an antidote to Terry Richardson. In the sense that, like, we want to create a really positive environment in which to make this imagery, and an environment where, we always discuss the concepts ahead of time. And, again, it's similar to when you were describing, before you go into a session, you have to be aware of, like, it's a consensual thing, and it's something where you want to feel comfortable and
negotiate everything.
Exactly. So going into creating an image with Andrea, we want to make sure that we have really strong communication and respect going into that. So our process is important to us. And then, of course, the humanizing aspect of what we're trying to do with this work is huge to us.
Well, and I mean, what has been so rewarding as a result of this very thoughtful, conscientious process we've undergone in creating this book is that sex workers like the book. And as far as I'm concerned, if sex workers did not like the book, we fucked up.
You did. Yeah.
That's a big fuck up.
Yeah.
But sex workers love the book.
Yeah.
And like it's becoming its own little genre on Twitter of like escorts posing with the book.
Yeah, it's the
and
best
it's
thing
the
ever.
most incredible thing. And I didn't realize that's the audience.
Yeah.
For me personally,
That's the real audience.
If like they got to be on board with what I'm saying with this book, and they are.
And of course, it means, we would never say that this book is going to be synonymous with other people's experiences.
Right.
For sure.
But at the same time, it's been so great to have, be approached by women. For instance, some of them are coming to our events and they'll say, oh, I thought this part was hilarious, or I could totally relate to this, And so that's so amazing to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just real quick, just because we're just wrapping up, Andrea, can you just tell me about the current work you're doing with a certain institution here in Toronto?
Oh my God. And this is like such an amazing bedpost story because this is my third time on your show.
Yeah.
First time I was on your show, I was in the closet.
Yeah.
Somehow talking about my interest in sex work.
Yeah,
as
you're a sex work researcher. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that was a stretch. But that I had gone to Maggie's, the Toronto Sex Worker Action Project. And I had gone there once when I was escorting for a drop-in and was actually quite surprised by my experience because I had been expecting to see more people who looked like me. And what I saw was people who were more street-based workers. And I realized like, whoa, there are so many levels to this that I'm not familiar with, and it admittedly made me a little uncomfortable, and I didn't quite know what to do. And then over the years I've been like following Maggie's really closely, and like a friend of mine got hired there as a program coordinator. Her name's Victoria Bell. And like when I saw that I was like, oh my God, like, oh, I'm getting closer. Like I've wanted to be involved in Maggie's for so long, but had been, whether it was like fear or like just being too busy or stuff like that. Then there was this opportunity they were hiring peer outreach workers, and I was like, now's the time. So I applied for it. Happy to say that I've been hired. Yay. And I'm currently in training.
Yay.
And we're going into our second week of training this week, and I'm so honored to be in the midst of people who are working on the grassroots ground level with the people who need the most support. And it's so important for me to diversify my own experience and to see the good and the bad, but nonetheless, people who want to be sex workers and want their labor recognized as work without being afraid of being hassled by the cops. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
The cops are not friendly to sex workers on the street.
Yeah.
And street workers represent such a small amount of actual sex workers.
Yeah, but they're the most visible.
Most vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah. When people think sex worker, they picture that gal on the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dipping into the front window of somebody's car.
Yeah.
And that is a minority
Yeah.
within the entire scope of sex work. And yet they are the people that are the most prejudiced against, the most vulnerable, the most targeted by police brutality. So it's amazing for me. It's been an incredible experience. I'm learning so much, and I'm so excited to just like keep learning and get my hands dirty. And
Well, we'll have to have you back when you've been doing that for a while. Talk about your experiences with Maggie's. Experiences with Maggie's. So we do have to wrap up. I hate to, but we gotta. Nicole, how about you talk about where we can get modern horror, maybe some projects you have on the horizon?
Yes. Well, you can get modern horror at modernhorror.com. It's a great way to get it. And you can also get it at numerous bookstores. So in Toronto, we have it at Good for Her.
Yes.
We have it at Seduction, at Type Books, at Another Story. And it's also in the U.S. At Stories Books and Cafe in LA.
It's just it's no big deal.
It is also in Melbourne.
Australia.
Yes. At
Amazing.
Brunswick Street Books.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Sure.
So we're kind of in the midst right now. It's been really exciting approaching bookstores to carry the book, and it's just like amazing to see it sort of start to go worldwide in that way. I mean, we've been shipping them all over the world for a while now, which has been really cool.
Amazing.
But yeah, that address again is modernwhore.com. And in terms of next things, like, you know, Andrea and I have our company, as I mentioned, Virgin Twins. And so that's how we publish the book. And we have some exciting things in development that we're looking forward to announcing. So please stay tuned. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, let me see. The things I have to talk about here are if you're in Toronto and want to see Bedpost, the stage show, I am the third Friday of every month at the Social Capital Theatre at 8 and the last Tuesday of every month at the Super Wonder Gallery at 9. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. It really does a lot of great things for me and my business.